Welcome to this latest episode in our series, Successful Selling in the Brave New World, where you are going to learn from Riaan Pietersen, professional sales strategy advisor, and Tony van Niekerk, editor of Cover Magazine, as they interview some of the world's top sales professionals, organizations, and sales leaders about what it takes to become and remain successful. Our series is designed not only to add value to sales organizations, but also to help individuals adapt and thrive in this changing new world. Our mission is to enable your success and empower you to live life on your terms.
Hi, this is Tony van Niekerk, Cover Magazine. I'm lucky enough to sit with Riaan Pietersen, well-known management consultant, sales strategist, especially the financial services industry. Riaan, thank you very much for talking.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for having us.
I'm also grateful to have Anton Musgrave with us. Anton, nice to see you.
Great to be here.
And Anton, well-known in the world of the future, a company called Future World, and futurist business strategist. Anton, thank you very much as well for taking that time. As we sort of speak, the whole idea is to talk about future-proofing your business.
Yeah.
I think the world has been changing forever. It's not a new thing. I think the only thing is probably that we're sitting with a pace of change that is very different and probably a little less predictable than it used to be in the past. In South Africa, in terms of our financial services, no different from the rest of the world, that people need to look at what is their business going to look like in the future, and more importantly, how do they respond to the requirements of a business that will survive into the future. So yeah, Riaan, maybe you can tell us what your thoughts are, and then we move on to Anton.
Yeah, Tony, I think just as a background on Anton, we've known each other for a couple of years, not on a business level, but a personal level. So we've had this conversation a few times about where companies need to go over the next 10, 15, 20 years. And I know that's the world that Anton moves in internationally. Some of his customers, some of the biggest guys in the world. And I think the interesting part and why I wanted to have a conversation with Anton and share this with the financial world was simply from a perspective of where customers and where clients and companies and organizations need to look at and where they need to be over the next 5, 10, 15 years. 10 years ago, it was pretty simple to predict the future. You know, it wasn't before internet and technology and everything is driving at such a pace that your traditional leaders can't keep up. I think it's a challenge. I think it's a real challenge for these guys to keep up, and especially at a high level of an organization where change is implemented and then filtered down. So we deal on a sales level with sales directors and sales organizations, but every organization has got that facet built in. You know, how do they stay relevant? How do they move into the future? And how do they ensure that they have market share over the next 5 or 10 years?
Yep.
We hear it from all over the world that guys are becoming irrelevant and the new kids on the block are jumping up, and all of a sudden there's the Ubers and that's taking over the world. And it's playing that game that I think a lot of South African companies could have a challenge over the next couple of years, because we're becoming competitive worldwide and not just in this little cocoon that we live in. So from my perspective, one of the first things, Anton, I'd like to know is, from a worldwide perspective, and these big organizations that you guys deal with, and obviously you have a team from all over the world that plug in and help the organizations, what's the crucial thing that companies are looking at over the next 5 to 10 years on their thinking and strategy wise before they start filtering down to the team? But where's the mindset? You know, where do we need to be?
Yeah. So I think you raised an interesting point. Increasingly, leaders are realizing that they don't really understand the future. Because of the nature of the change we're going through. And we all sense it. The pace is escalating and the volatility is increasing, etc. But I just want to take us, just press pause for a moment and just try and understand why is it different this time? Because we've had change through the ages. I mean, if you think back to the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, there's always been change, there's always been innovation, there's always been disruption. So why are we all saying that now this feels And the experience is that it's very, very different. And it's a very, very simple answer.
Okay.
It's called connectivity. This is the first time in the history of humankind that we have 7.5 billion people on the planet, all of which are connected, not with a mobile phone, but I call it a personal mobile smart computing device.
Right.
Okay. And it's the first time in history that we've had the ability, therefore, to connect, to share, to discover, and to communicate in a nanosecond with millions of people. And that's what's driving the speed of this change and the rapid nature of the change. And that's why it is, in fact, a period of profound difference to all the other epochs of change over time. And we mustn't forget that. And that brings me to a second point. You know, it's interesting when you talk to corporations, they have the kind of business of today stuff with all their divisions and their departments and their silos. And then they realize it's a new world and it's going digital and it's all mobile and da-da-da-da-da. So they have a digital department. Okay. And they kind of bolt that on the side, thinking, okay, we can now tick mobile, tick digital, you know, and then they wonder why stuff's not working. And that's a fundamental error of thinking. We now need to realize that it's not business as usual plus digital. Life is digital. And when life is digital, business has to be digital at every level. And digital has to permeate the DNA of the organization. How we think about everything from talent management to sales and marketing to product development to management, engagement with society. It's all digital, actually. There's no other way of doing things. So we are living in a world of digital life. And yes,
And it's scary for many people.
Absolutely, it's
Because they
scary.
don't understand these things. They don't.
Well, you say that, but it's interesting how, I mean, the best gift I've ever given my mother was her Kindle.
Sure.
The second best gift I've ever given my mother is a smartphone.
And your mother's on Facebook.
And she's on Facebook, and she's 88. So-
Sure.
so even that, it was
Yeah.
unthinkable 5 years ago,
Yeah.
and today it's kind of taken for normal, right? And the fastest growing demographic on Facebook is not the kids, actually. They're moving on to other things. But it's the parents of 50 to 80 is the fastest growing demographic. So anyway, so all of that sort of changing. And I think the implication for business is we need to spend more time thinking, understanding, and sensing the world of tomorrow. So the challenge is, how do we develop the power of hindsight over the future? We don't go there. We all analyze the past with perfect hindsight.
Sure.
Right? How do we develop that same ability about the future? Well, you need to spend time there. So what I say to corporations and leaders around the world is, don't ask me what the future is of financial services or what's the future of sales or banking or anything for that matter. That's the wrong question. Because that question demands that you extrapolate from a current knowledge set and a current comfort zone. Right? So we think about the future through the haze of current operational complexity. And that haze distorts our thinking about the future and constrains our thinking about the future. What you really need to do is leapfrog beyond that. Take yourself 5, 7, maybe 10 years out and say, what does the world look like? Right? What does the world look like from a social perspective? How are people living? How are people engaging? How are they connecting and communicating? What do they do when they wake up in the morning, and what does the rest of their day look like? Look at the geopolitics of the world. Look at the technological forces of the world in that space. Understand the canvas of life. And then elevate your conversation to a more pragmatic level perhaps and say, all right, if that's the canvas of the world and life and people, what does the marketplace look like 5, 7, 10 years out? So a very simple question. Let's talk about which industries are succeeding 7 years out, 10 years out, all right? Why are they succeeding and how are they succeeding and what do those industries typically do? And by the way, which industries are struggling? What is becoming commoditized? What is becoming irrelevant and why? Which industries are really struggling to differentiate? And see how the landscape of the marketplace shifts. Let's talk about simple things. Let's say, well, in the future, 7 years out, what is abundant? Okay? And remember that people won't pay you a premium for anything that's abundant.
Sure.
And what is scarce? Because people will pay a lot of money for satisfying a need that's really scarce. Okay? So, very simplistically, abundance will be data, absolutely abundant. Transparency, abundant. Openness, abundant. Trust, probably scarce.
Sure.
Simplicity, definitely scarce. Lots more complexity. Complexity is abundant, right?
Yeah.
So that starts giving you a sense of, well, that's what the marketplace of the future looks like. And then I ask businesses to say to themselves, ask themselves, if that's the world and that's how people are living and engaging, communicating, and etc., and this is the picture of the marketplace, what kind of business should you build to be relevant in that marketplace? Let's have that conversation.
And you should start now. You
No,
can't
no,
wait.
we'll get
Yeah.
to the execution
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah.
Let's do the dreaming and all the design piece first. So design your ideal business in that future, all right? And don't think about your current business. Think that, unconstrained. And then you wake up in the morning and look back to the present,
Yeah.
okay,
Wow.
from that world, and say to yourself, wow, this world and this business in that world is amazing.
Yeah.
We've built this incredibly relevant, successful business. We're flourishing. We can charge a premium. We, meeting all our criteria. How did we do it is the question. You see, what companies often do is they say, what should we do? And when you ask a question, what should we do? You look at the answer through the haze of current operational complexity and challenge. And the next thought you have is, what does it mean for me? What does it mean for my bonus? Will the boss approve it? Can we afford it?
Yeah, sure.
Will our systems allow it? And so you constrain the optimal answer. When you ask the question, what could we be in that world? It's unconstrained thinking. Then when you look back to say, how did we do it? You're so excited about what's possible that you become much more creative about solving the current
Getting
operational
there.
questions. Right?
Right.
Because you see, wow, that's what I want to be. I can be that. And then you get much more creativity and energy to solve all the complexity of this haze, that you face. And the haze is a reality. I mean, I don't want to
Sure,
detract from it. It's a real challenge.
It's where we live right now.
It's where we live right now. But don't start by looking through the haze.
Okay.
Jump over the haze and then come back.
All right.
Okay. And formulate your plans for the haze, through the haze, but driven, fueled, energized by your ideal future outcome. And that's a different way of looking at it.
So Anton, how do you get people then to lose their current mindset and think of the future?
I was going to ask that
I'm-
next question. How do you get them
I'm
there?
tempted to say a good single malt helps. But I think, so it's a very interesting process, and it's fascinating because the human brain, especially at my sort of age or our age, is deeply grooved. Very difficult to change a lifelong pattern of thinking and behavior in a weekend. So you need a process. You need a process to change the way you think. And I often ask people, when last did you think about how you think?
We
And
don't
people
have
say,
time
well,
to
what-
sit down and
what do you
think
mean?
about how
You
we
know?
think. We're just running.
You see, and that's exactly
Yeah.
the point. And by the way, we start thinking and we start forming correlations in our mind from seconds after birth. When the doctor slaps your bottom, you cry, and your brain forms a correlation. Pain, cry. Cry, mom comforts you. Okay? So there's cause and effect lessons from seconds after birth.
Sure.
And of course, we build more of lessons as we go through life. So by the time you come to a business decision 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, your brain has a pattern of thought. When this happens, that's the consequence. That's what you do, this has that effect.
Yep.
But all of that's changed suddenly.
Yep.
So now how we think has changed. So the first thing is to say, let's engage in a series of conversations about this future. And let's start off by saying, what are the forces today in 2016 that are building, that are shaping the future? All right? And what do those forces mean? And let's talk about what the obvious implications of those forces are. But the more important question is, what are the second and third order implications of these forces?
Okay.
And that's a debate. It's a process, it's a journey. But I say to people, let's just start off by saying one of the big forces in the world right now, and we're seeing it, with the American election today, in fact. Why do people vote for scary presidential candidates? Okay, they vote for them because they're disgruntled with the present.
Yep.
And it's around the world, not just in America, around the world. 7.5 billion people, maybe 4 or 5 billion people are sensing that they're not going to be better off next year.
Yep.
Or next week, and they're disgruntled with the system of the world. That's a big force, right? And the force is fueled by the fact that people have lost trust in big business, they've lost trust in governments,
Yep.
they've lost trust in institutions like the World Bank and the United Nations. And so trust is the glue of society, and when trust is eroded and fractured, people start questioning. Then they discover they're in a worse off place financially, and their lifestyle, security, education, jobs, etc. All of these things are being challenged. So that's one of the forces, I think, that's shaping the future.
Yep.
Another force is obviously openness and transparency. And there was a great book by Don Tapscott who said, unless you have a strategy for a radically transparent future, you're going to be in trouble.
But don't we try and keep transparency to ourselves because we're scared we're not going to do the deal or get the customer?
Absolutely, we do.
We try and keep it close to us and say, hang on a second, I'm not going to share this because maybe they won't buy.
Correct.
Yeah.
And guess what? The customer knows it anyway.
They do. They do.
And if they don't know it today, they'll find out after you've done the deal, and then you'll never do another deal.
Absolutely.
Right? So you have to, my view is, you have to assume that we live in an open, transparent world where any information you want to get access to, you can.
Yeah.
All right? And most informed customers, and increasingly everyone, has that information and will get access to it.
Yeah.
So take VW, classic case. They thought they could hide their emissions, right? Guess what?
Couldn't.
Toyota Motor Corporation had a Samsung.
Yeah, yeah.
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 And so there's increasing stories that underpin you can't hide anything, you know. So that's another
So
force.
that's the rewiring. We used to hide. Parents caught us doing something naughty, so hang on a second, I didn't do that, Dad.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's pain coming.
Yeah.
And that's how we take our lives forward.
That's right.
And make
And
decisions in
that's-
business.
My view is there's no way to hide in this world.
Yeah.
You have to, your business thinking has to assume that your customer, your client knows everything. You know, will they still buy from you? If the answer is no, you've got to rethink your proposition.
There was a study done, I think I shared it with Tony, that currently, and this was out of 400,000 buying organizations, top corporates, it's 60% of the buying process is complete by the time that the sales organization or representatives faces the customer. So they've got the information, they've done
Correct.
the research, they know
Correct.
who your customers
Correct.
are, who your competitors are, what the pricing is, and they're actually just there to buy or clinch the deal with the person sitting in front of them.
Well, now that's an interesting point, because to me that's another one of these big forces that's changing the world we live in. And that is the fact that very few companies around the world understand why they do what they do.
Yep.
Every company understands very well what they do and how they do it. But very few understand what will the world miss if they were vaporized this morning. And if you take a big international bank,
Yeah.
right, what will the world miss about this bank called, let's call it ABC Bank, if they were vaporized while we were talking? Now, don't tell me they'll miss a product or a check account or a credit card or an investment product or a pension fund,
All the same.
because there's tons of that available, right?
Sure.
So what is it that they bring to society that will make society say, wow, we miss that?
What's that value proposition?
And that talks to the why.
Yeah.
Okay, that talks to why are we here? Now, to make it really simple for us to understand, Lifebuoy soap.
Yeah.
We all remember Lifebuoy soap
Sure.
from our youth, okay? It smells bad and it burns your skin. But Lifebuoy soap's purpose, their why, is to make the world more hygienic. Very simple.
Okay.
That's why we exist.
And they did that.
And they did that. And if Lifebuoy soap didn't exist, the world might not be as hygienic.
Right.
Great. So now, as a salesperson, that's what you're selling.
Sure.
And by the way, that then infiltrates and becomes embedded in the DNA of your company and your behavior and your culture and your values and your market relationship, etc., etc.
But that comes from the top.
And that comes from the top down.
Sure.
So we've got openness and trust. We've got technological disruption. We've got transparency and speed. Then there's another very important shift. We've got a world moving from linear world to exponential world. Right? In the linear world, if you take 30 steps, you land up on the sidewalk outside.
Right.
If you take 30 exponential steps, you go 26 times around the earth. Now understand what that means in terms of scale. Right? In the linear world, you have a sales strategy. If it works, you hit last year's target plus 6%.
You do this and
Okay.
this and this, and you're going to get there.
Exactly. In the exponential world, you're either going to crash and burn, or you are going to do 5 times last year's sales target.
Yep.
And we have the tools, the context, the environment, the technology, the platforms to create exponential impacts. But you need to understand how that works.
Yep.
What drives this exponentialization of the world is what they call, Salim Ismail writes about the 6 Ds.
Yeah.
He said, everything is becoming digitized. That's the first D, digitization of everything.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll give you a few examples. The second D is it becomes, it's deceptive.
Right.
Right, because people either don't know about this digitization or they're too scared to accept it.
Yep.
So it's deceptive.
The status quo.
Exactly.
To change that.
You rather have the status quo. The third D is disruptive, because as true as Bob, this digitization is going to at some point become disruptive, and then it changes whole industries
It's happening in the financial industry, Tony.
significantly.
Yeah.
Then it becomes it dematerializes the world and it demonetizes the world. What those 2 Ds mean is it changes the fundamentals of the business model and the value proposition. Okay. And the 6th D is it becomes democratized. So when the digitization breaks through deception, becomes disruptive, changes business models and value propositions, suddenly the marketplace explodes in size. It becomes democratized. In other words, far more people get access to the solution which was triggered by digitization.
Yeah.
So the classic example is Uber, right? Before Uber launched in San Francisco, they had $150 million a year spent on taxi fares in San Fran. A year after Uber, the taxi fare, and by taxi I mean ride-sharing market, was $460 million. So the market grew by a factor of 3 through the digitization of transport, which was disruptive, was deceptive, then became disruptive, changed the business model of transport, the value proposition of cars, and democratized transport. That same process is happening across the world. Think about renewable energy. It's happening. Education with Coursera and Udacity, etc. It's happening. Healthcare, digitization is happening. Okay.
Can we escape it?
Absolutely not.
So the guy sitting in the bottom of his office saying, listen, this is scary.
Yeah.
I don't want to go there because I get it daily. I look at guys and they say, I can see this blank. This is Facebook's a dating kind of digitization. LinkedIn, I don't understand it. I don't buy into it. Is the expression that I get quite a lot. And it's going to take a lot of work.
So it's classic deception.
A lot of work.
Well,
so I don't do it.
Yeah, you could do what politicians do. Say, well, my term ends in 3 years.
That's
I
right.
Make it until there.
Or 25 years, Tony, depending on where you live.
Or you can embrace it and say it's going to exponentially enhance my operation.
What happens if you don't? Where are you in 5 or 10 years, in your humble opinion?
So there's a lovely thing called, or maybe it's a scary thing called irrelevance.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have to say to yourself, if you are going to buck a pattern of global forces and shifts, then you either got to be really brave or very stupid, right? If you're going to be really very, very brave, you'd better say to yourself, what will make my alternative view successful despite all the odds moving in a certain direction? And it's not impossible, but you'd better be very clear and very different.
So I could differentiate myself by doing things this way. All the other guys are going that way. I'm going to do it this way. Old school.
And understand, you might have a market. It'll probably be very small, but it might be very lucrative.
Okay.
So we all listen to music on our iPhones and on iTunes and da-da-da-da-da. Now there's a few guys making vinyl records, all right?
Sure.
Very successfully.
Yeah.
And people that are into vinyl records pay 10 times what they used to cost, so you can survive. In fact, you can make a margin.
Reading a book.
But understand the world market for vinyl record buyers is this big. The world market for digitized music platforms is that big.
Yeah.
So it's not impossible, but you have to be very clear about what your value proposition is.
Sure.
And you have to find a market that's prepared to pay you for that value proposition.
Yeah. I read an interesting thing the other day about digitization and about, especially when it comes to the sales side of the insurance industry. And somebody said the only value add that is going to remain, that will not be taken over by technology or robots in terms of the robo advice, is where there's emotion, empathy, or relationship.
Well, now that's interesting.
So when it looks at sales and
Yeah.
Anton's going to tell us we're going to take that away as well.
No, interestingly, I've been saying for a while now, I think humankind as a species, now this is quite profound, okay?
Yeah.
As a species, our only hope at long-term relevance is in fact our humanness.
yeah,
Sure.
So, let's come back into financial services perhaps. Let's be very clear. We cannot beat the machines. It's game over.
Yeah.
Right? It's game over. They will outthink us, outremember us, outprocess us,
Outrun us.
never get sick, outrun us, outwrite us, not join unions, et cetera, et cetera. That part is game over.
Yeah.
And we have a window of opportunity of maybe 20 or 30 years at the most to prove that we have relevance as a species. And why I say there's a window is because, again, the smart machines are developing at such a pace. They're even now building the ability of intuition.
Artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence. I mean, there's a lovely example recently. There's a Chinese game called Go,
Yeah.
which has more moves on a Go board than atoms in the universe. So to write an AI to play the game of Go well, you can't program a normal algorithm that says if they play that move, then you do this move.
Yeah.
Because there are more moves than atoms in the universe.
you need it to learn by itself.
You need it to learn by itself really fast against the world champion, and it needs to develop an intuition for which is the right move.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, guess what? 3 months ago, AlphaGo, which is Google's artificial intelligent machine, beat the world champion of Go. Okay. So, and
So it's starting to happen.
that's why I said we've got a window. Okay. Now I don't know how big that window is. 20, 30 years maybe. But Go achieved, from a programming computer science point of view, the progress that scientists thought would take 10 years, they achieved in a matter of months.
Yep.
So that, again, it's a pace of change thing. So the machines are getting smarter and they're building intuition.
Yeah.
What we have to do as humans is we have to embrace that capability to deliver fast, efficient, cost-effective solutions to the marketplace. Embrace that.
Yeah.
But we have to overlay that with humanness. And what is humanness? Okay. In a world where trust is broken, open and transparency is a given, machines are there, speed is a given, absolutely, and we live in exponential times. So how do we need to build that humanness overlay into the value proposition to make us different? Add to that, another force in the marketplace is noise. The noise is exploding, right? We're spoiled for choice. And there's too many marketing messages coming at us. I mean, I go berserk every day with the number of unsolicited marketing messages I get on my mobile device.
Brain overload.
It's
with all the
completely.
information.
So how do we use our humanness to break through the noise in an exponential world driven by technology where trust is broken? To bring that into the world of financial services, I still think that what society, what the markets are looking for is thought leadership,
Yeah.
innovative thinking, and a real alignment with what my interests are as an individual. I don't really care what your sales target is,
Yeah.
and you shouldn't either.
Sure.
Okay?
Relationships.
You need to understand what my needs are and align what you do with my needs
Yep.
at a very human level. Okay? Because I can get the robo financial planner to do my lifelong cash flow. I can get the robo advisor to look through the whole suite of products. But can I get that unique human overlay that makes it relevant, simple, easy for me to implement?
Can we hide from it in South Africa? Are we 5-10 years behind the rest of the world, or are we going to be caught up as quickly as the rest is happening?
Riaan, I think that's a dangerous way of thinking, because yes, in some cases you may be right. But if we look what's typically happened, and I work a lot in India, which is an emerging market, I don't work too much in Africa. But if I just take what happened in Kenya, for example, with mobile money and M-Pesa,
Yeah.
they leapfrogged the world.
Okay.
Okay. In Kenya, you can pay for something off your mobile phone using #345#*, and I can transfer money to you. You can't do that in New York,
Yeah.
right? In Kenya today, you can buy an insurance policy for your crops, insuring you against drought and flood damage. It's a text message on a feature phone.
And it covers you.
And it covers you. You try and do that in London.
So it's happening in
not
Africa.
possible. So the point
It's
is,
been happening for a while.
exactly. So, and I see it in India time and time again. People make what I call toxic assumptions. These are assumptions that appear to be rational and reasonable today in 2016 or 2017, and yet when you view that through a 2022 lens, you realize, oops, that was a mistake.
And it's quick.
7
years is nothing.
So in India, there's an assumption that, rural India are incredibly poor people, much poorer than we are in South Africa. There's an assumption that they don't have mobile devices and won't use them because they're not literate. It's completely true today in 2016, but through a 2018 lens even, it's toxic.
Different.
Because by 2018, every single one of 1.4 billion Indians all have mobile devices. And by the way, what happened 3 or 4 weeks ago in India?
Yeah.
Mr. Ambani from the Reliance Group launched a new mobile operation called Jio,
Yeah.
and he offered it lifetime free airtime, lifetime free voice,
To anyone.
anybody, and the cheapest data package in the world.
Why?
Because he realizes, because connectivity is a given.
Sure.
The digital platform is the basis of life. Okay, I told you digital life.
Sure.
And if he wants to build the rest of his empire in a world where connectivity is a given, where digital life is the
So
rule.
the add-ons are where that business is thinking about, but
Precisely.
they're giving now
Precisely.
and getting the customers. And this is what's
Exactly.
happening in our industry.
Yeah.
Getting to the final point and asking both of you, or give you a chance, Anton, and then you, to sum up, if you're a salesman today in South Africa, regardless of which product, you can go for the financial services, but regardless, if you're a salesman, what would you be focusing on?
Okay. I would try and understand very clearly, why do I, Anton, as a salesperson, have a right to exist? What am I bringing to the market that's unique, compelling, relevant, and future-proof? And understand that it's not about the product and it's not about the tech, right? The tech is an enabler. The product is just the product. It's a vehicle, right? So what is it that makes me unique through a future lens? And I would make sure that I am perceived by my target markets as a thought leader, as someone that thinks about this deeply, and that resonates with them in a way that creates deep, real trust. Now, this word trust has been so overtraded, but I think we really do need to unpack what makes society really trust Anton, the salesperson. And what am I bringing to them that they really can't do without? Define that. Right now, the way I get paid might be the sale of the product. But if that's what I think I'm all about, it's game over. Okay. Unfortunately, we haven't yet worked out how to recognize and reward people for the real value add they bring. We still pay them by the sales commission or the product target being achieved, etc., etc. And that's another problem. It's another whole big debate.
Get to that in the next issue.
We'll get to that in the next issue.
We're going to deal with that.
But understand, what am I bringing that's unique? Why do I have a right to exist? Why will I be regarded as a valuable person in the ecosystem? And I've chosen that word particularly rather than the word value chain, because value chain is linear, ecosystem is exponential.
Yeah.
Okay.
Riaan?
How much time have we got? So I think just as an add-on,
Yeah.
I deal with sales organizations and guys on the ground, and communication is sometimes challenging from the top to the bottom. The bottom guy doesn't know how to engage new customers. I think a lot of us do the ostrich, where we don't want to face what is happening in the world, and digitalization is real, and we don't just want to talk about digitalization, but it's a mindset of where businesses and individuals need to be over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
So you either adapt or do what Leon Schuster says, die. And adapting means taking on these new embracing it, like you say. And initially, it's a slow process. There's no initial response from the marketplace if you go onto digital platforms to start marketing and selling and getting thought leadership. So how do you become a thought leader? Can't do it in print media anymore. It's very difficult. It's very pricey. So digitalization is how you do it.
No one's reading the print anyway.
No one's reading it. I hope you haven't got any print companies.
Yeah.
The fact is,
you see, sorry, just to
yeah,
press pause.
yeah.
The point is, it's not either or. That's another
Yeah.
what I call toxic assumption.
The target.
It's not either or. It's not print or digital. It's an ecosystem of communication capability.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it's the relevance and power of the message.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's absolutely. I see from our side, as we spoke earlier on, the whole idea is to let the consumer, in our case readers, choose at any given time whatever they want to read,
Yeah.
how
Correct.
they want to read
Where
it,
they want
they want to read it,
Correct.
how much of it they want to read.
Correct.
As long as we can provide them with that,
Yeah.
it's great. And if print disappears because it doesn't feature in that choice of theirs anymore, then
Then
print
c'est la vie.
disappears. So
Yeah.
so
But the
be it.
difference is, Tony, you don't drive that process. The
Yeah.
consumer drives it.
Yes.
The buyer drives it. We don't drive it as sales guys anymore, or
But
sales
that's why I
organizations.
mustn't think about myself
Sure.
and what I've got now. I must think of my customer,
It's a mind switch.
what they actually want and how they want it. And all I have to do is make sure that I go with them. It's actually...
Let me give you a classic example. I'm working with a big, very well-known South African bank recently. And the question I asked the senior executives at board level were, how will you measure your future success?
Yeah.
And they came up with a whole range of very cleverly designed formulas for measuring future success across a whole range of operating metrics. Can't fault it academically, can't fault it from a business perspective.
Yeah.
Great. I asked the same question to a group of 30-year-olds in the same bank. I said,
Different.
how will you measure your future success as a bank? And you know what they did? They filled a page with like ticks. The world must just like. Very different, right? In other words, doesn't matter what we do, if the marketplace loves it,
Then we're doing the right
the
thing.
success metrics will flow.
Yeah.
Whereas the senior guys
Sure.
of my vintage had complicated formulas, actuarially perfect,
Yeah.
but it missed the point.
We assume,
Yeah.
Missed the point.
Tony, you got to
Well,
cut
we
the
know
cord.
what-
We can do this for
You
3
know what they
days.
say about assumption. So let's assume our time is up. Anton, thank you very much. It
Great
was,
pleasure.
Great chatting to you. I hope we'll get another chance to
I'm sure.
have a chat.
Yeah.
And Riaan, you too.
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you, Tony.
And,
Thank you, Anton. Yeah. Great
look
stuff.
forward to that.
Good.
Fantastic.